Welcome back. Gender inequality in South Africa continues to widen. The latest World Economic Forum's latest stats reveal that it will take 98 years to close the gap in sub-Saharan Africa and more than 130 years to achieve this goal globally. In light of these statistics, Soul City has launched its Feminist Leadership and Activism Center. For more on this center, I'm joined by Phinah Kodisang, who is the Soul City Institute CEO. Phinah, thank you for making time for us this afternoon. What services is this center going to provide for young people? What is the vision?
Thank you, Clement. The vision is to capacitate, is to build feminist leadership in young women, because they come from very patriarchal societies where oppression of women is so entrenched. So we want to give them the capacity for them to be able to challenge the systems, be it religious systems, traditional systems, authority, male-dominating authority. And we want them to be able to exercise that within a framework of their rights, but also within the framework of dismantling these systems, patriarchal systems. So the center itself is about building leadership, but also resourcing the activism of young women. Yeah. So when they have built that leadership, we want to give them resources to go into their communities and challenge these issues, these oppressive systems, and the issues that keep them oppressed as young women.
Yeah, and we have an incredible young generation of activists, of feminists. But it's one thing to be that, and it's another to be a feminist and an activist with a decolonial consciousness.
Yes, because all of us, our framing comes from colonization. We look at whiteness as being better than black. We look at male authority as the right authority. So that's what colonization has taught us. So we want to decolonize the thinking of young women, to tell them that they have a place as women. They should actually use their voices to challenge the status quo. They should not be afraid to occupy space, to occupy leadership space, to take up leadership roles in their communities, to create platforms where other young women are able to come and challenge. Because right now, society is not enabling, it's not creating that safe, enabling environment for young women to raise their voices. So we provide them with mentorship, we provide them with coaches who help them frame how they want to deal with the issues. Because let us be honest, it's not like it's the first time that we are tackling these issues. A lot of organizations exist that are trying to deal with issues of male dominance, deal with issues of gender-based violence, but we don't apply a feminist lens when we deal with these issues. We still continue with challenging the system from a patriarchal, positioning. So we are trying to say, let's shift. Let's look at feminist principles. Let's use intersectional feminism to challenge race, age, gender, disability, and all these systems or subsystems that exist within the bigger patriarchal system.
Yeah, and I mean, we live in a country that is overcome by these patriarchal systems you mentioned, and they manifest themselves in various ways, right? Whether it's gender-based violence, injustice, reproductive violence, among others. And it's not just going to take, I imagine, your organization through this center for us to see a shift. So what is it going to take for there to be this collective intention to ensure some change until we see that shift?
Yeah, we have, even, and maybe let me touch a bit on the summit. So we had a 2-day summit where we were looking at what is the role of all stakeholders, government, civil society, faith sector, traditional leadership sector. We need all these sectors coming together to challenge the current system that exists. If it's just Soul City doing it in their little corner, then we're not going to win. We need everyone. And last time I said we need all hands on deck. Everybody must see it as their responsibility to make the shift, to change the narrative, to bring the leadership that is needed. So we are calling for leadership outside of what organizations like Soul City are doing. We are calling for even greater leadership within the homes, within the communities, because as much as we are empowering these young women, what disempowers them is what they find in their homes, in their communities, in their churches. So we want to work with the whole ecosystem, not just the individual young women. Otherwise, we are setting them up for failure. Yeah. We need to empower them, but while empowering them, work with the other layers of the ecosystem to make sure that when they get to the communities, those shifts are already happening on the ground.
You've already received a lot of applications, I imagine, for those who want to take part and be admitted at the center. How many young people have you accepted?
This round, we only have 20 young women, and it's our first time. So we wanted to start small, learn a few lessons from it, and then when we now roll it out, we will be able to take in more. But right now, we have 20 young women who come from diverse backgrounds. They are young women in their diversities from different communities in the 9 provinces. So we have people from the Western Cape, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Gauteng, which is good because you bring in these diverse realities that they come with from their different communities, and you are able then to have a broader idea and a bigger picture of what is actually happening out there. So it's good for us that we have these 20 and they represent different sectors and they represent young women in their diversities.
So they have a lot of learning to do. Speak to us about the activists and feminists that you have chosen to work with you in delivering the modules.
We have different people. We have Shirin Mutara, who's known in the sector, being the coach. She coaches them on their social change activities that they choose to do. So one of the things that we want them to do in the center is to identify in their communities what are the things, not big scale things, but what are the things that we are ignoring in the communities that we need to address. Then there's a coach, Shirin Mutara, who works with them, to look at how can she help them shape those ideas into a proposal that they can take forward and that can be funded for them to be able to do that activism. And Soul City will be the first organization to fund those social change actions so that we then show other funders that this is something you can invest in. We have Lindelwe, who's working with them on how to do social mobilization. How do they mobilize other young women? How do they bring other young women on board so that there's solidarity built in their communities around the issues that they face? A big thing that we also cover in this is healing and dealing with trauma. So we have Matilo Mutse, who works with the young women on dealing with their traumas, on dealing with their issues that stem from traumatic past. So she runs a center called Africa Ikalate. So she's also doing group sessions and one-on-one sessions, just addressing the healing aspect, because we realize that this work can be triggering. The work in the feminist space, in dealing with issues around patriarchy, gender-based violence, is very triggering because a lot of young women have been raped before, have been violated before, and they come into the space with those scars. So you want to help them heal themselves before they invest in doing the healing work out there. So those are some of the people that we have brought on board with us to help us shape this center and to help shape the leadership of the young women. And there are others that, their names escape me right now. But we have many other feminist leaders who have come on board to support us. We had yesterday Karabo Mukonyana coming through just to motivate and encourage the 20 feminists that we have, because she's a young feminist herself who's doing phenomenal work out there. So she's volunteering to be their coach as well in terms of movement building and feminist leadership building at the grassroots.
Yeah. So when these young women leave the center, what kind of agents do you want them to be? How do you want them to leave the center?
One, we want them to leave the center well equipped with the skills and the tools that they need. We don't want, we always look externally. We don't invest a lot in us as activists. So this phase, we are saying to them, let's invest in building you as a leader. Before we say to you, go out there, let's invest in your leadership. Some said they want to pursue their education. So Ford Foundation, which is our partner in this, is helping us to look at what other opportunities exist for them to further their education, because you need to gain knowledge. If you want to tackle issues, you must be knowledgeable. You must be able to know what this issue is, what it represents, how it can be dealt with. So we are investing this time a lot in building their own leadership, their own skills, providing them with tools that they will need. But that is why we also have a coaching and a mentor for each and every one of them. We want them to feel supported, because one thing that we don't have as activists is support. So we want them to feel supported. We want them to feel that they are not alone in this journey. And so we've carried many other leaders who are going to be coaches and mentors to come on board to walk this journey with the young women in their community. So we want them to be equipped with skills, as I said, but we also want them to be able, to exercise raising their voices, even in their homes. I can tell you an area where a lot of young women are disempowered is in their homes. So we are dealing with how do you also do activism in the home, because most homes are still very patriarchal. They still believe in the binary of, a male boy, a male child is this, a girl child is this, and they don't create those platforms for girls to thrive. So we want them to be able to do activism even within their homes and their churches, but we also want them to be able to, as I said, mobilize other young women. How do you bring others on board who have not been part of the FLAC, the Feminist Leadership Center? How do you bring them on board so that they also transfer the skills to their peers? So those are some of the things that we want them to do. Before we say, let's do big, activism things or even advocacy things, let's start small, build your confidence, build your resilience, and then you'll be able to tackle bigger issues if your confidence is built and your leadership is demonstrated even in these grassroots, small areas or sphere of influence that you have.
Yeah. Phinah Kodisang, Soul City Institute CEO, thanks for making time.